Welcome to Engedrian. If this is your first time listening, or even if you are returning, be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for additional content, battle maps, and background details. We hope you are enjoying our adventure. Let's see what happens next. Piece of the puzzle opts to be the night guard for Malaysia and, as such, sleeps for a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the late afternoon. This allows them to have the middle of the day to explore Pathelia. At the start of the Quinn Day, Peace goes shopping with Fodinas and Malaysia. They have been traveling Pathelius since they arrived in a simple robe with a small undergarment and a sash at the waist which stands out and is becoming a bit shabby. Peace works with a tailor and acquires a pair of white cotton loose-fitting pants with several deep pockets and a heavy cord drawstring, a white cotton loose-fitting shirt which wraps to the back from the front and ties in the back, creating several internal pockets, and a new deep purple cape with hood and lined with silver filigree that has a red sash for tying at the waist. They also procure simple black pants, black shirt, and a black cloak. A cobbler makes 2 pairs of shoes, one for each outfit, that are a pair of heavy leather sandals with strong binding cords and a pair of fitted black ankle boots. Peace pays 100 gold pieces for all items. Peace pays 100 gold pieces and receives 2 new outfits with shoes and a purple cape. They also find a jewelry smith and ask her, a rotund furbog, to look at the ruby from the king and suggest an honored way that Peace could wear it safely.
Well, what a beautiful stone! 2 carats and flawless with a beautiful red color. I know this cut well, the king's private jeweler. Yes, I can see why you want to honor it and keep it safe.
She places the stone on a dark black soft cloth and reaches under her counter, pulling out a wooden box. She opens it to reveal a variety of settings made from different metals, some attached to chains, others to leather straps. She selects a few, lays them next to the ruby, and puts them back. She shrugs and looks up.
Tell me, what is your name?
We are called Piece of the Puzzle. We are not from here exactly. We are what you call a tabaxi. We are a poet and what you might call a monk.
Peace bows with their paws held together and turned forward in their usual way.
I'm called Gesrelda Mockenshire. I'm not from here either. My parents moved to Pathelia when I was a child from Everfeld, the great furbog city in Isperia. Fascinating place. Stars fall from the sky there frequently. So you were a poet and a monk. That's some quiet time and some very active time. Lots of flips and kicks, I think. You know, just the thing.
She vanishes into a back room, and Peace hears a few boxes fall over and what sounds like a chair fall to the ground. Gesrelda returns from the back and lays a short golden rod on the cloth. Peace looks at it curiously and blinks a few times slowly.
What is it?
Oh, sorry.
She pulls one end of the rod and a short length of it pops off to reveal a steely point. On the opposite end is a small bar that has a space at the end large enough for the ruby.
You see, this is a very fancy writing pen. When you lift this little bar, the nib at the end drinks ink from your ink bottle. Then you set the little bar back down and it closes the inkwell inside. Then you can write with it.
Peace stares with their mouth open.
May I try it?
Peace is already removing a bottle of ink from their bag along with a piece of parchment.
Of course.
Peace places the nib in the inkwell and lifts the bar away from the pen body. They are used to dipping their ink pens or quills in the inkwell and writing briefly with the poorly controlled flow. But the black ink flows up into the pen and to what appears to be a glass chamber that holds nearly half the ink bottle. When it stops filling, they push the bar back in place. Peace puts the nib on the paper and a large blot of ink forms quickly.
Oh, wait. I think I understand.
They move to another part of the parchment and place the nib, but immediately begin moving it, writing Piece of the Puzzle in common. Peace's eyes almost fill with tears at the beauty of the letters, the flowing lines, and the beautiful curves.
Perfect. Give me an hour.
Griselda takes the pen from Peace, unscrews it in the middle, and removes the glass chamber, placing it carefully on the counter. She then vanishes into the back with the ruby and the base of the pen, leaving the head with nib behind. Peace sighs and wanders around the shop, looking at the other items on display. In one case, they see a most interesting brooch, which has 8 stylized gambling dice covered in symbols and surrounding a central pendant, all inset with silver. Wouldn't Fodinas look handsome with this brooch while gambling? They look at every case with intense curiosity, hoping to find something that would look handsome on Case when he's fighting, but to no avail. Griselda returns after an hour with an incredibly satisfied look on her face, carrying a wooden box. She sets it on the counter as Peace walks over. She opens the lid. Inside, Peace sees the base of the pen, now with their King's Ruby safely attached to the loading bar. There are 2 additional glass ink chambers, each with a metal cap, along with 4 additional nibs of various sizes and widths. Griselda caps the full ink vial and places all the pieces in the wooden box. Peace claps their paws together and releases an uncontrolled, long purr. But then they look up with big, round, sad eyes.
This is so beautiful and exquisite. I fear that it may be well beyond what I can afford.
Peace's paws open and close in an alternating rhythm on the side of the counter.
Nonsense, my child. This ruby was a gift from the king, was it not? And as a servant of the king, it is my duty to make sure this ruby is as honored and safe as you cherish it. You need only cover the cost of my gold and the materials. The labor is free. I hope that 75 gold pieces will not be too much.
Griselda gives Peace a big wink. Peace's face quivers as a tear forms in both of their eyes.
You are too kind, Griselda. I will gladly pay you 100 gold pieces, but for my sanity's sake, if you were to sell this in your store without my ruby, what would you normally charge?
You are a curious cat, Peace. I suppose some things about cats are always true. Let's just say that most people would need to bring in 2 rubies like yours, one for the pen and one to pay.
Her harsh but melodious laugh fills the shop. Peace gathers all the pieces of their new fountain pen, closes the box, fastens the small clasp, and places it in their bag. They hand over 100 gold pieces.
We will cherish it for all of our life.
Peace bows again.
May we show you a few pieces we salvaged from a spider's nest in the woods on our journey to Pathilia? We wonder if you might recognize them so that we might return them to their owner.
Peace removes the gold locket, silver ring, dagger with hematite, malachite, and moss agate stone inlaid in the blade, hilt, and knob, short sword, horse tackle, and holy symbol from their bag. They put the short sword and tackle to the side. Griselda looks at each item carefully. She produces a small glass loop and surveys them each in turn.
The locket and the ring are nice pieces, but very common designs. And the locket is empty.
She clicks it open to show Peace that it could easily hold about 2 tablespoons of material, but has no marks or engravings. She holds up the ring with the loop, and Peace can see that it is smooth without markings.
Now, this dagger is clearly a unique design and largely, I would guess, ornamental. You can tell it would not hold together well in a battle, though it will look pretty on a shelf. This holy symbol is not familiar to me, but it is made of polished wood, base metal, and stone. I'd guess it originated from Oldestal.
Griselda pulls the short sword over and looks carefully at the hilt, handle, and blade.
Oh my, look, see here, look at this.
She points to a series of engravings just above the hilt on the blade.
This is an offhand short sword of a king's stealth trooper. I don't know if they can be identified beyond that, but perhaps with all these other items together, someone at the king's garrison can identify them. I'd keep them all together and see what they think.
Thank you. Also, if I may inquire, Griselda, that small brooch in the cabinet with the dice?
Griselda moves to the cabinet, removes the brooch, and then places it on the black cloth on the counter. Peace makes an Arcana check. Rolls 18. Peace gets the very distinct impression that this brooch possesses magical properties for an attuned wearer, but they cannot determine more than that.
A really gaudy piece, if I must say.
Griselda fingers it with a sigh.
It was pawned by a rather shady fellow that I think might have stolen it. He wanted to get rid of it and just wanted coin. Just came in about 4 days ago. I think it's hideous, and it's not as beautiful as my own work. But the stonework and the metal are valuable, so who knows? You have a friend that might like it? Would probably suit a gambler, no?
We do have a friend that might like it, though we agree it's kind of gaudy. What do you think you would sell it for?
Peace makes a deception check versus Griselda's insight check. Rolls a 6 versus a 7. Griselda smiles smugly.
You really think it's gaudy? I mean, I do. I don't know, probably no more than 100 gold pieces. It is silver with small garnets.
Peace swallows as quietly as possible and steadies their voice.
He is a dear friend, and we do owe them our life. We think we will buy it.
They paw over another 100 gold pieces. Peace receives a ruby-adorned golden fountain pen set and an unknown magical brooch in exchange for 200 gold pieces. After their 1 day of shopping, Peace spent most of their free time during the day walking around Pithilius in their new white outfit, perusing bookshops and libraries, and occasionally stopping on a street corner to recite poetry from their homeworld or from their book of Angedrian poetry. Peace makes 4 performance checks, rolls 22, 7, 11, and 14. Some of their recitations are very well received, while others do not seem to catch the ears of passers-by. However, on most days, some coins are thrown to them as they bow. Peace receives 39 gold pieces, 5 copper pieces, 4 silver pieces, and 17 electrum pieces. Peace finds 4 libraries in Pithilia and spends an hour or so at each looking for information about the dream of the Blue Veil or other forms of multiverse travel. Peace makes 4 investigation checks and 4 intelligence checks paired, rolls 19 and 13, 18 and 6, 3 and 5, and 18 and 10. At 3 of the libraries, Peace manages to find many books that discuss the magical spell, its theory, how it works, and anecdotal stories of multiverse travel. They manage to gather that the spell itself works with both a magical item made in the destination realm, as Case described with Trabask, but also that the destination can be to a place where one of the participants in the spell was born. Other forms of multiverse travel are rare, and Peace comes across a report of the existence of planeswalkers, but there are too few details for them to understand exactly what they are. They take 2 pages of notes in their journal to discuss with Case and the others. While guarding Malaysia at night, which involved mostly watching the Fire Genasi sleep, Peace composed new poems about Pithilia, their fights with the owlbears and spiders, their own brush with death, and character studies of each of their current party companions. They are most proud of a poem about the bravery of Case with the spiders. Peace has reached 3rd level. Peace chooses Way of the Kinsei for monastic tradition, painting, spear, and darts. NSL and Theophania make it to the Salty Pig on the first day of the next Quinday, both looking worse for wear. Theophania finds a tannery inside the city walls before the inn and manages to sell the owlbear skins and the panther skins for 50 gold pieces total. Malaysia had also given NSL the owlbear feathers, which she sells for 10 gold pieces to the same tannery, but adorns her staff with 3 of them tied on the top with a leather beaded cord that the furrier sold her for 2 gold pieces. Theophania gains 50 gold pieces and NSL gains 8 gold pieces. At the inn, the party reunites, and everyone is happy to see Theophania and NSL alive and well. Umgurn arranges for a private room for them all to have a celebratory lunch and to share the details of their Quinday apart. Umgurn spends 25 gold pieces on a private room with a full lunch. After everyone has had their fill and are all smiling and happy, Umgurn turns to business and begins by recounting everything he has learned. The party follows suit, and each member gives a full account of their activities and what they have learned. Case is the last to speak, and when he concludes, the party falls silent for several minutes. Then Malaysia sits up in his chair, leans forward, and gathers his thoughts.
The facts, as we have discovered them, are the following. First, Inacron is an unknowing spy for the Mind Flayers, so we cannot touch her. To keep tabs on Varkador, who is a demon Mind Flayer hybrid, possibly plotting to replace leadership throughout Plethilius, to assist Saltrophius in quietly invading by completing his experiments on mind stealing and memory replacement, which our friend Frodinus was one of the first experimental subjects, but the king doubts Varkador is the real threat. Second, Inakron, from all external indications, seems hell-bent on having my heart, including a current contract on my life for 10,000 gold pieces to set the city of Pathilia on fire in hopes of plunging Pathilius into chaos and assisting some trophies with an active, timed invasion of the Blight, which may or may not be habitable now that the ancient weapon has dissipated and it's possible to possess if we can sort out a way to fly, but the king thinks this is some sort of riz. Third, there are at least 6 eruptions from the Underdark which Benacel and Theophania have accurately mapped, as we can see here, and seem to have occurred along the road from Woodshead to Pathilia, except for this random one south of the road, and Case has managed to learn how to navigate the Underdark in this area with a detailed map, and the king is most concerned about these events. Did I miss anything?
He concludes and takes a breath. Case and Fodinus chuckle. Peace sits up.
We procured this interesting magical brooch, which we have not figured out, for Fodinus as a gift.
They hand the brooch to Fodinus, who admires it and smiles. Case looks a bit hurt and looks away.
We have also written this most delightful and illustrative poem about Case, which we would like to read for you now.
Everyone smiles at the giddy cat and nods. Case looks back at Peace with a smile of pure joy. Peace reads the poem in its entirety. Theophania and Inacel wipe tears from their eyes, and Case hides his face in his paws, gently sobbing. Fodinus grabs his shoulders to comfort him. Umgren seems unmoved, but nods slightly in approval. Malage sits with his mouth hanging open.
You are a master of the written word. Fafele. Fafele.
Malage claps genuinely.
Fafele?
Case looks up, composed, and stares comically at Malage.
What is Fafele?
Oh, well, in my home, when someone does something extraordinary, others clap loudly and scream, Fafele, Fafele. I was stolen when I was very young, so I don't really know what it means other than maybe good job.
He smiles, slightly embarrassed.
Little one, I think we should perhaps just change your name to Fafele.
Fodinus reaches into his pocket and pulls forth the stack of letters.
This is probably nothing of concern, but I came across this information. A series of letters between possibly a noble or wealthy lady of Pathilius and a crown man. I have not had a chance to read them, but I thought one of you might determine if anything more needs to be done.
Malage and Peace pull the letters towards them and begin opening them and reading them together. After 2 letters, Peace pauses. They pull a bundle of blue cloth from their bag and place it on the table.
These items were in the spider's nest that Case and we examined on the road. We spoke with a jeweler, and she suggested that this holy symbol might be of Aldistal, but she was sure the short sword belonged to a king's stealth trooper. Umgren and Fodinus, we thought you might take the lot to the local king's guard and see if they might be returned.
Without another word, Peace returns to the letters. Inacel pulls another bundle of burlap from her bag and places it on the table.
These were together on the body in the cave of the Panthers. A bard, I believe. I think a similar effort to see if anyone can identify the remains would be helpful. I know where the grave is, so that we could share that as well.
She bows her head solemnly and pushes the bundle to the table.
Malage and Peace, feel free to study those letters, but at some point, please look at that brooch of Fodinus. I know it was a gift, but we should make sure it's not dangerous.
Fodinus places the brooch on the table and frowns.
Fodinus, let's take these 2 bundles to the King's Guardhouse. There is one a few blocks away, and see if we can find a home for them. Inacel and Theophania, please get some rest. Please, I would appreciate it if you could watch over Malage until we return.
Case nods and smiles at the little Genasi, who is reading pages extremely fast, while Peace carefully examines the script and writing. Within a few minutes, Umgern and Fodinus arrive at the King's Guardhouse. The soldier on duty outside bows quickly to Umgurn, as this is the station he has been supporting for the last Quende, and allows them inside. The captain of the station is a wizened dwarf with ashen skin and a long, thick beard, who constantly has a large cigar in his mouth, unlit, that he seems to chew upon. He is a jovial fellow, but often smells of sweat, burning meat, and stale ale.
Umgurn, you black-skinned scoundrel from the depths of the Underdark, what are you doing out in the sun?
Fodinus chuckles and pats Umgurn lightly on the back.
Good to see you as well, Captain Iron Feast. We have come in search of some assistance with some remains.
You brought dead bodies into my guard shack, you dirty bastard!
He releases a cacophony of laughter, accentuated by a few coughs, which are wet and deep. Fodinus joins him in laughing as well. Umgurn ignores the jests and places the bundles on the desk, unfolding each of them in turn.
These were found in a giant spider's nest on the road between Woodshead and Pathelia.
I'll be. That's a stealth trooper short sword. They are only stationed here, not in Woodshead. Fellas!
A small, thin soldier wearing very little armor and carrying a small sword runs in from the back room.
Yes, Captain.
Check the registries for these items. Assume they are all from the same unlucky bastard. And what's this other bundle?
Umgurn separates the items and opens the other bundle.
They appear to be from a bard and were found in a cave on the same road, possibly killed by panthers or something more sinister.
Umgurn looks down quickly and then at Fodinus as if to say, I didn't mean to say that. Umgurn makes a deception check at disadvantage versus the captain's insight check. Rolls 5 versus 15. Iron Fist goes a bit quiet, stands up from the desk, and then crosses his arms across his chest.
Umgurn, what something more sinister are you thinking?
Umgurn sighs deeply and looks up at the captain.
The evidence found near the body suggests that perhaps a Hokor from the Underdark attacked the bard.
He waits for the explosion of anger and winces, but then opens his eyes. The captain is chewing on his cigar and has sat back down.
Tell me what else you've learned about the road to Woodshead. We have been getting reports of trouble. More than one report suggested something similar. Others might be involved. Please, Umgurn, advise me of what you know.
The very serious tone of the captain and his complete lack of jest reassure Umgurn. He steps forward and places his hands on the desk.
What my colleagues have determined, Daldane, is that there are multiple eruptions of the Underdark along this road. Evidence of Kruthic, Hokorers, Dark Mantle, Piercers, Rust Monsters, and possibly a Roper on the surface in the daylight were found. We are currently evaluating all of the information to try and understand the source.
Umgurn pauses and stands with his arms crossed.
Yes, that makes sense. Fellas!
The thin soldier returns and bows deeply.
The Guild of the Melodious Mary. Make sure these items are delivered to them so that they can let us know if any missing bard could be a match.
Yes, sir. And I have determined who the stealth trooper was, sir.
Fellis smiles like a dog waiting for a scrap of meat.
Well, spill it, boy.
Her name was Nuagnug. She is a bugbear from Oldestal and one of our most loyal and decorated soldiers. She vanished about a year ago. There was a letter from her father, and her brother was missing, and she requested permission to go and search for him. That's all we know.
Fellis takes the second bundle and departs to the back room.
Very good.
The captain reaches towards his ear, and Fodinus notices a similar set of earrings along his ear to the constable, although these are of a different stone. He taps one and whispers into his palm. He continues this for a few moments, takes a deep sigh, and looks up.
Umgurn, I'm afraid there's nothing for it. The king is certain, and he sends you his regards, that this eruption in the Underdark represents a threat that must be investigated immediately. However, he is afraid to start a panic or risk the loose lips of the guards and their families. We can shut down the road for 2 Quendays maximum. During that time, the king has requested that you investigate these eruptions.
Umgurn drops his arms and begins to open his mouth.
Umgurn, this is not up for debate. You are from the Underdark. You know it better than anyone. If you want to take a team with you, assemble them immediately. You depart first thing in the morning. We must have an answer to these attacks and understand their source.
Iron Fist takes a piece of parchment and quill and begins writing on it frantically. When he concludes, he stamps the bottom of the page with a wax seal and hands it to Umgurn.
Have any of your people sign their names before you start? That way, if they're killed, their families can receive their share. The contract.
Umgurn looks down and sees 25,000 gold pieces written as the contract fulfillment. He smiles and looks up from the contract.
We will do our best, Captain. We will return in 2 quindays, or we will not return.
Umgurn bows and exits with Fodinas trailing behind. As Fodinas is about to exit the door, the captain clears his throat loudly. Fodinas looks back at him.
Strong work on eliminating that whore beater. He was a miserable piece of manure.
As they travel down the street, Umgurn clears his throat.
A whore beater?
Fodinas smiles.
I had some time on my hands, so I looked for a little work. There really are no secrets in this town.
The letters.
Umgurn sighs deeply.
Well, if there's anything more to know, the firebrand and the eloquent cat will sort it out. And you are correct. Between knows everything.
Peace and Malaysia continue to study the letters. Malaysia makes an investigation check and an insight check, rolls 11 and 14.
Elvisa Datterley is a high lady of a noble house and lives in the Hides Inn district, which is a very wealthy part of Pathelia. From what I can determine, she was having at least an emotional tryst with someone named Redrick of the House of Hollowborn. Much of her letters heap praise on him, which seems unwarranted. This last letter to her, which was unsent, seems to be his final plea for funds to start some sort of endeavor, but the details must be in the other letters.
He pauses and looks through the papers again. Peace makes an investigation check and an insight check with advantage, calligraphy expertise. Rolls 14 and 22.
We agree, Malaysia, but there is more. Redrick is clearly a charlatan and a liar. His word choice is responsive and patronizing. His letter strokes indicate he is of very low intelligence that uses practiced words and phrases that he thinks will appease his reader. Our thought is that this Datterley is either very elderly or very desperate or very stupid to have been taken by him. We agree that the machinations he planned are impossible to determine, but the sum of funds he planned to extract was very high. We wonder how Fodinas came by these letters.
Case, who was quietly sitting in the corner watching the door and the windows, looks over to the tabaxi and smiles.
Our bugbear friend can slip in and out of shadow through narrow cracks and down dark, deserted alleyways without being seen. This is a big city full of many people, and this Redrick sounds like a foul, conniving person, or rather, seems like someone who would cheat at games of chance. I think Fodinas probably relieved him of his burden.
Peace looks over and furrows their cat brows.
What burden?
The burden of his miserable life.
Case smiles and returns to the windows. Peace looks quickly at Malaysia, whose face has gone a bit ashen. Peace pulls their journal from their bag, makes a few notes including the name, address, and a few details of the exchange. When they are through, they nod to Malaysia, who scoops up all of the letters and tosses them into the fireplace, where they are burned to ash in a few moments. By the time Umgurn and Fodinas return to the inn, it is mid-afternoon and the streets are bustling with crowds of people moving all over town. They find Malaysia and Peace sitting near a window, Malaysia in full light with an odd, bold look on his face, while Peace sits behind an easel with a canvas working with brushes. Case is sleeping in the chair by the door, but Inicel and Theophania are fully awake and talking. Inicel seems to be working on making some sort of potion. Inicel completes 10 potions of healing at a cost of 500 gold pieces. Fodinas moves over to Peace and Malaysia and observes the canvas on which Peace is creating a simple portrait of the fire genasi.
Anything important in the letters?
He smirks. Malaysia looks up from his pose and Peace looks up from their canvas.
I think Ellarissa Gatterley is very lucky that Redrick of the House of Hollowborn will never bother her again.
Malaysia returns to his pose.
And should we pay a visit to Ellarissa Gatterley, we would very much like to see the correspondence she received, as there may be some valuable information there.
Peace returns to his canvas.
You burned the letters, yes?
Of course.
Neither Malaysia nor Peace flinch as they respond.
You're corrupting everyone around you, Fordinas.
Umgern pats him on the back as he sinks into a deep chair cushion and almost instantly falls asleep. When the drow begins to snore, Fordinas taps each person on the shoulder and gathers them close to him, away from Umgern. He whispers quietly so that the roaring fire covers his voice.
Umgern has been charged by the king to investigate the Underdark eruptions. He will need our help, and they will pay handsomely. If you are not willing to set off tomorrow with Umgern on this adventure, I suggest you pack your things and exit before he awakes from his nap. Is that perfectly clear?
Fordinas looks at each of them in turn with a stern but friendly face. They all nod solemnly. Isvara has drifted towards the horizon, and it is nearly supper when Umgern awakens suddenly from his nap. He feels well rested, but frantic that he let the day slip away from him with such a responsibility on his shoulders for tomorrow. He sits up, rubs his eyes, and takes the measure of the room. Fordinas, Case, Peace, Malaysia, Theophania, and Inicel are all there, and each nod and smile at him. He returns their smile weakly.
My friends, I am afraid I have much to ask of you, and you need not feel compelled to do it.
Theophania holds up a hand to stop him.
Umgern, we have packed the wagon and added the extra supplies we will need for the 2 Quinde expedition into the eruptions of the Underdark. We have sufficient food, shelter, water, and Underdark exploration equipment. All that we need from you now is a starting point.
Umgern smiles broadly, something he rarely does.
It is always best to start at the beginning, but in this case, we do not know the beginning, so we shall start with the closest eruption and work our way from there.
He nods to the group and stands.
I think it's time for a well-deserved, large supper, and dare I go too far when I say it's Fodina's treat.
Everyone smiles and laughs except Fordinas, who frowns slightly, opens his mouth to protest, and then joins the rest in light laughter. If he was going to have to pay, Fordinas wanted to do something special. He moves the party through the streets, which are still bustling, to a large building which has many windows on its facade of all 4 stories. The amount of light emanating from the windows makes Umgern squint, even though Isvara has set.
The House of Passard. There isn't a finer place to dine in Pithilius other than the King's Table, and this is the only restaurant in Gendrian.
Everyone's eyes go quite wide with excitement as they enter the building. Theophania is impressed with the extra wide and tall doors and, upon entering, the spacious tables and arrangement. 4 centaurs could easily dine without bothering other guests. The clientele of the restaurant is primarily very wealthy patrons who are adorned with fine brocades of silk, cotton, and satin in a rainbow of colors. Many wear very large, almost ridiculous white puffy wigs on their heads, and Malaysia points at one and snickers into Peace's ear. Fordinas whispers to Malaysia that they are called perruque de pompe. An incredibly thin man wearing a deep green suit with a light green shirt and a dark green tie floats towards them and bows slightly.
Hello, Monsieur Oraduc. We are so delighted that you are joining us this evening along with your 6 guests. Might I suggest the 3rd floor parlor of the Vainqueur Exalté?
This seems to not be a suggestion, but the only option available. Fordinas looks back at the group and smiles.
Alexander Ami. I think for tonight, we would be much more comfortable in the Cave Secrète de Délices.
Fordinas smiles and bows slightly. Everyone looks nervously at Alexandra Ami.
But of course, mon cher.
This seems to be a much better choice and excites Alexandra Ami, which confuses everyone else. He leads them through a door off the main dining room and down a spacious flight of stairs that Theophania easily navigates. At the bottom, they walk down a large stone and wood hallway illuminated by glowing orange gas lamps. The host pauses at a large door, bows, and bade them enter. The door opens to reveal a room that is as exquisite as it is comfortable. There is a large table in the center of the room around which there are 7 chairs, each of which looks as if it had been hand-selected for the 7 guests. There is a large chaise lounge of deep, fluffy cushions for Theophania, and 6 additional chairs, which appear to be the exact width, depth, and height for the remainder. They can easily find their seats because placards have already been placed with their names on them. The table is round, and in the center is an enormous candelabra which has a base no larger than a human hand. The walls are covered in paintings and exquisite wallpapers of various designs. On the far wall is a large roaring fire. Everyone finds their seats and settles into their chairs. Each face betrays how incredibly comfortable the seat is and how relaxed they all feel. Over the next 3 hours, Alexandra Ami orchestrates the fluid and almost soundless movements of Gabrielle, Blaise, Charlotte, and Adelaine, who bring them wine, water, ale, milk, and tea. When the courses begin to arrive, each plate is the same, but slightly different depending on whom is sat before. The salad has strips of beef for Fodinas, but Pieces has strips of pheasant. The cheese course has rich, young, milky cheeses for Umgern, Piece, and Case, but well-aged, hardened cheeses for the rest. And so on and so forth, the courses continue to arrive. When the final dessert course is served, Malaysia is counting on his fingers and looks up with surprise.
14 courses. We've had 14 courses.
Fodinas laughs out loud. As the desserts are placed, everyone gasps as they each have their own unique dessert. It is molded or shaped into a likeness of their face and is made with a unique combination of each person's favorite sweet flavors. The food is finally cleared and everyone is poured a large, bowl-shaped glass of dark brown liquid except Umgern and Peace, who receive milk. Case seems to be falling asleep in his glass, and Theophania stretches her body across the cushions and sighs.
My friends, I hope this meal has been a triumph and a blessing to your minds and your bodies. We go with our brother, Umgerd, tomorrow to face an unknown darkness at the behest of the king. There is no greater honor, and I am most humbled and delighted to be taking this journey with you.
Fodinas bows his head quickly and sips his drink. The group silently sips and eventually finishes their last beverage and stands to depart. Alexandra Ami walks over to Fodinas, and they place both their hands together and kiss each other on each cheek. The host bows deeply, smiles at the group, and leaves. As they walk down the street back towards the inn, Malaysia leans close to Fodinas.
How much did that cost?
His eyes are wide with anticipation, and he whispers in hopes of gaining the secret sum.
You could have afforded it, Malaysia, but you might not have any coin left.
Malaysia gasps, then grasps Fodinas' hand tightly and holds it all the way back to the inn.
Oh, and what language were they speaking? It didn't sound like the common language of Pithilia.
Malaysia swings Fodinas' hand back and forth.
Well, the chef and most of the people that work in the restaurant are from a place called London. As far as I know, they are the only people from that place that live in Engadrian. But I was told on my first visit to Pithilia by a fellow gambler who introduced me to the restaurant not to ask about it. Apparently, it is a very sad story. But whatever it is, they clearly love food.
At the front door, Fodinas turns to the group and points across the street.
If you want my advice, a branch of the Pithilius National Bank is there. I think it's a good idea to reduce the weight you are carrying, and your gold will be safer there. Best to do that first thing in the morning when you awaken.
During the night, everyone sleeps soundly with their bellies full and the agreed-upon mid-morning late start after their business with the bank. As the breakfast crowd clears out and the inn's main floor is virtually empty, the party gathers for tea and conversation.
The wagon that we secured in Woodshead has been repacked with everything we might need for basic supplies, including additional rope, tools, lanterns, oil, torches, some explosives, and sufficient rations. I assume you all have some, and I included that in the count, so there are 84 total. That is, 1 day's rations per person for 10 days, plus an extra 2 days of bonus. I would suggest we redistribute the supplies so that each of you carries only 2 rations on your person, and the rest are in the cart along with your tools, rope, etc. Please keep your water skins on you, and I have secured 2 large barrels of water, which are for 5 days each.
Theophania pauses and picks up her tea, taking a long, slow swig.
Excellent, Theophania. I assume everyone has sufficient spell components or other items you need for casting and rituals?
Everyone nods in agreement with Umgern.
Very good.
Oh, Fodinas, your brooch that Peace gifted you. I spent some time identifying it last evening as best I could. It is, quite appropriately, a magical brooch to assist gamblers in being better at gambling. Well, fine. You'll need to attune to it, but once you do, you'll find improved odds in your gambling endeavors. You can also, but only once per day, transfer that luck to one thing you do. It's pretty cool. I wasn't able to determine all of its properties, unfortunately, but you can see for yourself.
Malaysia hands the brooch back to Fodinas. Fodinas receives a brooch of the gambler. While this silver brooch, which depicts 8 stylized gambling die covered in runes and surrounding a silver pendant, is on your person, you have advantage on all dexterity and charisma-based checks and saves. Once per day, you can double your bonus for any check or save, regardless of the base ability. You cannot use this ability again until the next dawn. Fodinas takes the brooch, looks at the back and front, and then slips it in his pocket.
I am not one to cheat at gambling, but anything that might improve my gambling face is appreciated. I'll attune to it while we're traveling.
He smiles at Peace and Malaysia, then returns to his tea.
I have managed to make some healing potions for everyone, so you should all have one on your person, and I'll keep the rest.
Inesel starts removing the potion flasks from her pack and placing them on the table.
Very good. Let's all meet at the wagon in half an hour and we can get started.
Umgren stands and heads for the door. Felis, the thin guard from Captain Ironfeast's office, greets Umgren and the party as they load the wagon, carrying a letter which is sealed with a wax stamp. Umgren looks at the letter, which is otherwise unmarked. Umgren makes a history check, rolls 2. He does not recognize the seal and looks at Felis expectantly. Felis nods towards the bugbear and then runs off back towards the direction of the guardhouse. Umgren frowns, then turns to Fodinas and hands him the letter. Inesel is standing next to him and sees the seal. Inesel makes a history check, rolls 5. She looks at Fodinas and shrugs her shoulders. Fodinas opens the letter. He looks up from it quickly, with a confused look on his face. Umgren moves over and takes the letter. He recognizes that it is written in Goblin, a language that almost every bugbear would know instinctively, but with his memory erased, Fodinas seems to have forgotten it. He scans the letter, sighs, and folds it up. Umgren makes a deception check versus party's insight check. Rolls 11 versus 6.
This is nothing of great import, and we can deal with it when we return.
The party nods complacently and thinks nothing more of it. Umgren tucks the letter inside his tunic. The party travels for 2 days on the road, still surrounded by the farms of Pathilia, with no delays. They stay at the 2 inns, which they had previously frequented. Case, Fodinas, and Peace make checks for gambling/entertainment times 2 days. Case rolls 14 and 15, Fodinas rolls 28 and 20, Peace rolls 22 and 6. Case receives 25 silver pieces, Fodinas receives 5 gold pieces, and Peace receives 16 silver pieces. On the morning of the 3rd day, within an hour of traveling, they are into the wilds. Theophania pulls forth her map, which Inesel reviews over her shoulder. Umgren slows the wagon to a halt. Inesel and Theophania whisper and point at the map. Theophania makes a survival check, aided by Inesel, advantage. Rolls 25.
The first eruption is about 15 minutes ahead on the left side of the road. It is in a bit of a treacherous terrain, so we will need to leave the wagon and cart. However, Inesel and I found excellent coverage last time in a dense nearby grove that is not too far from the road.
I can easily set a loud, blaring alarm on both the wagon and the cart as well. That will scare off anyone who comes near them, except for us. Will take me less than half an hour once we're settled.
Malaysia leans forward from the back of Theophania's cart and pats her on her hindquarter. She nods and begins moving again. Malaysia casts alarm twice as a ritual, once on each vehicle after they are hidden in the grove. Less than an hour later, with the wagon and cart hidden and alarmed, the party is standing outside of the eruption which tore through the base of a large tree. It is nearly midday, but the eruption is very dark, even standing in the full light of Isvara. Theophania and Inesel each carry a bullseye lantern loaded with oil and lit as they descend into the hole. The others pick their way carefully, reliant on their dark vision. The eruptive cavity is structurally unsound and challenging to navigate carefully. The descent to the bottom is at least a 3-hour journey through newly dug rock and soil. The party makes dexterity checks and stealth checks, DC 12 on each. Roll dexterity 24, 18, 7, 9, 14, 5, 18. And stealth 25, 12, 11, 5, 16, 24, and 13. Fodinas, Inacel, Umgurn, and Peace scale the rocks with ease and find footholds and handholds to clamber down into the darkness. After many hours, they land at the bottom of the eruption almost soundlessly, noting the tunnel they have entered is ancient, carved, and well maintained. The loose rocks are a bit challenging for Theophania, who slips and slides on her 4 legs for most of the descent, landing in a cumbersome pile when she reaches the bottom, but barely disturbing the rocks or making a sound. Unfortunately, Case doesn't seem to be able to get his bearings or footing in the loose soil, stone, and dirt, slipping and sliding frequently. He dislodges many rocks and stones which rain down upon his party members. In the last 20 feet of the tunnel, his foot slips and he rolls and tumbles down the hole, landing flat on his back in the underdark tunnel with a loud thud. Malaysia likewise dislodges stones, slips and slides through rubble and debris, and at the bottom lands loudly on top of Case. They both gasp.
Are you okay? Theophania, are you all right?
Only my pride was hurt, Umgurn.
Everyone chuckles softly in the darkness. The party make investigation and perception checks, DC 10 and DC 15. Roll 11, 20, 1, 11, 10, 20, and 1 on investigation. And roll perception 15, 26, 1, 7, 2, 17, and 6. Case has dust in his eyes from the fall, and his head is ringing from striking a rock on the way down. Peace, seeing Case struggling, moves to assist him, paying little attention to everything around them. Malaysia and Umgurn get a sense of the cavern, which connects to the eruption with loose debris from above scattered all about. Umgurn points to several tunnels that lead off from the eruption site, and Malaysia nods. Fodinas, Inacel, and Theophania also see the tunnels leading away from the eruption, but notice that there are 3 distinct patterns. The tunnels leading away have a natural stone floor that appears polished and dust-free from constant use. The ground near the eruption, which leads out of the space, is covered in fresh dirt, rocks, and debris. However, running away from the party in both directions appears to be a newly dug pathway through the original tunnel with some sort of pattern marks cutting through. Within those newly dug tunnels, they hear the soft echo of footsteps and the faint clank of metal. Fodinas, Inacel, and Theophania touch the shoulders and back of the other 4 quickly and nod or point towards either end of the new tunnels. As their eyes adjust and Theophania and Inacel's lanterns illuminate the space, a glint of dark eyes sparkles from the ebony shadows. 12 kobolds charge the party. Thank you for visiting Engedrian. Don't forget to find us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for additional content, battle maps, and background details. We hope you're enjoying our adventure. We can't wait to hear what happens next.